Welcome to the Modern Husbands Podcast. We're any combination of Dr. Bruce Ross, Christian Shale, and Brian Page, host national experts who share winning ideas to manage money in the home as a team. I'm Brian Page, founder of Modern Husbands. Sometimes our listeners want more support than a podcast can give, individual or couple support, which I provide as a certified financial therapist, accredited financial counselor, and fair play facilitator. Details can be found at modernhusbands.com. Achieving a balance between work, family, and personal time can feel overwhelming, especially for dual career couples. In today's episode, I use the Fair Play system to work with Lucy and Brian McAfee to create a more balanced home life, ensuring that everyone gets the downtime they deserve. Lucy McAfee is the host of the ManFlu podcast, where she explores gender dynamics and emotional labor in modern partnerships, and what it looks like to raise boys to become thoughtful, connected men. After 16 years in healthcare strategy, she stepped away from corporate life to focus on this work and develop Boys Who Care, a program aimed at building social and emotional skills for boys. Her husband, Brian McAfee, spent over a decade owning and operating a restaurant and is now in his next entrepreneurial chapter, focused on sports betting. They live in Lake Tahoe with their 2 sons, where they're beginning the work of creating a more balanced partnership in real life. You can find more from Lucy and the ManFlu podcast on Instagram at Lucy P. McAfee. Enjoy the show. Lucy and Brian, thank you for joining today.
Thanks for having us.
Well, we have a treat. I've never done this before. I'm excited about this. Lucy and Brian wanted to have a conversation about figuring out a system inside their home to manage it with more efficiency and then ensure that they're striving for equal leisure time. And that's difficult to do when you're a dual career couple, you have a family, you have children, and then Brian has a really interesting job that makes it difficult. And I want to start with that because I'm a little bit jealous. Brian, can you first tell us a little bit about yourself, and then Lucy, you'll go and then share more about your family after Brian's done. Lucy.
Sure. So I used to own a restaurant in St. Louis, which is where I met Lucy. I guess it was 2014? 2012. Which I had it for 10 years and then sold it. I guess that would have been in 2019, right around Labor Day. My passion, putting the restaurant aside, is I love to gamble on sports. So that's kind of what, when we moved out here in I guess late 18, that's pretty much my passion, along with just kind of investing in the market, stock market, that is. So
okay. And Lucy, can you share a little bit about yourself and then the rest of your family?
Yeah, for sure. So I had a corporate career in healthcare for a pharmacy benefit manager, also out of St. Louis. For about 16 years, I was with them. And really started to feel, especially after we started having our boys, that it just was not my passion any longer. It was tough. I took a step back in order to spend some more time with them. And then it really started to feel like I'm not climbing the ladder anymore. I think I need to really explore what I'm interested in. And so through working with a career coach and doing a lot of research, I actually am getting ready to launch my podcast in later April. And it's called the ManFlu. And it is focused on a lot of these same topics around how we can really have more balance in our households. But also we have 2 boys, a 9-year-old and one that just turned 5. And I'm very passionate about how we're raising them and really looking at breaking some of the cycles and the societal scripts and what really kind of leads us to, systems like this, and needing to sit back or take a step back and look at how we're showing up in our homes and in our relationships by really looking at that next generation. So also working on a program focused on boys and trying to right this ship while they're young.
I love to hear that, Lucy. Brian, and I'll start with you. What made you say yes to having this kind of conversation live on a podcast where we're going to actually go through the process, at least to begin, to work more toward equal leisure time?
Oh, wow. I think she just demanded that I come on, number one. So
I don't think I demanded.
Yeah. Well, no, it's okay.
Asked
It's good. I'm happy to provide whatever it is that I can, which I'm not sure how much I can provide. But yeah, she's wanted to do this for a long time. I'm excited for her. She's looking forward to launching her podcast at some point, and it sounds like this is a good place to start today.
So if this conversation goes really well, what would feel different from today and a month from now? So how would you feel differently in a month?
That's from here. Yeah.
Either one.
Yeah,
I'll take this one. I think that I would feel like we've focused a bit more on ownership around the both household management as well as the childcare aspects. Sure, we'll get into some of this, but I think a big piece that we haven't fully done is to make the invisible visible and to really like put everything out there. Think as seems to happen in a lot of marriages between a man and a woman when we've got these kids, is a lot of the work just starts to default onto the woman, and we kind of run around with all this stuff in our heads, all these lists, and we're guilty of where I'm often just like delegating when I'm frustrated, and we kind of get into this cycle of just jumping in on different things, the physical things, but there's a lot underneath it that I'm managing that I think isn't visible. So if I looked a month from now, I would love to see that we've divided and conquered both in some true ownership of responsibilities, but also with our time. I think there's some like time blocking and delegation we could do just from like you're on this morning or you're on tonight, and letting the other person either get leisure time or jump back into some work that they needed to get done.
But it's interesting you mentioned that you want to delegate something, and you usually when you're doing that, your anxiety is probably high, and the challenge is that when emotions are high, cognition is low, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the goal here is as we're sitting here and emotions are low, cognition can be high, and we can more easily create a system, and that's every marriage, right? Like particularly if you have children like you two do, and you have interesting careers and you're both working, it's just a lot to tackle. Before we go into kind of that goal of establishing equal leisure time, Brian, let's start with you. How would you define leisure time?
That's a good question. I mean, Lucy has some good friends here in town that she goes out with, and whenever she's looking to connect with her friends, most of the time I'm usually here at the house, so I'm not pushing back on that. My leisure time is honestly most of the time I'm here at the house. I'm not necessarily going out all the time. I've got some friends that I end up coaching baseball with, for our our 9-year-old, and have done his basketball team. So I'm doing a lot of sports related activities, not shocking given what I'm passionate about in my career. So, I'm not usually pushing back when Lucy wants to go out, and as far as leisure time. So, and I don't feel like I demand a lot of leisure time because I'm at the house a lot. So,
yeah, I think one interesting aspect, as we talked about with our current careers, is that Brian's work is also something that he would do in his leisure time if he did not have action on it. So I think that's where we get a little muddy, is probably like in the evenings or weekends where the kids are around and need to be fed, or homework or whatever is going on. He may have games that he needs to be watching and monitoring, etc. And so I think that's where we get interest, because of course, like you said, leisure time isn't always leaving the house necessarily. It could just be that you're alone in your office and I'm downstairs managing the kids. So I think that's where we get a little probably hung up on what is leisure time when your passion is blended with where you're making some money as well.
Do you have more fun watching sports when there's money on the game, Brian, or?
I don't watch games if I don't have money on it.
Okay. Okay.
Unless it's somebody I really like, which is pretty rare.
And then I'm imagining you do a lot of in-game betting.
That is a thing. That is a big thing, especially depending on how much money you have on it. You know, if you want to hedge your bets halfway, if you realize that you're not on the right side of where the game's tracking. Yeah, there's the in-game betting is a huge market now.
And how many days a week do you work? Do you have money on the line?
I would say minimum of 6 days and often 7 days.
Is that necessary for you to generate the income that you need to fulfill your budgetary requirements at home?
I'd say yes, but also just because I really enjoy it. You know what I mean? That's probably why minimum 6 and sometimes 7. So,
what do you do when you go on vacation? Do you still gamble?
Depends on the state.
Depends on the state, yeah. What state? You're in Georgia. There's no gambling allowed, right?
Yeah. I mean, you can do like fantasy football, but there's no sports gambling.
So the loophole, and I'm not sure you're familiar with this, maybe you are, but have you heard of Kalshi or Poly Market? Are you familiar with them?
Yeah.
So that's like the loophole now to gamble on sports without being in a state that's legal, because they classify it differently than sports gambling. So when I was out in California a month ago to visit a friend, I knew of Poly Market and Kalshi, and he pulls it up when we're making bets. Now, I don't think they have the same. I don't think they come anywhere close to states that have, like, Caesars. Let's use Caesars Sportsbook. There's a plethora of different varying bets you can make, versus Kalshi and Poly Market is, I think, more, for lack of a better phrase, simplistic bets. Where you just bet on one team versus the other. I don't think they offer the same amount of variety of bets that you would in legalized gambling states, sports gambling states.
But typically, like, if we are going somewhere that you can't make bets, you'll often try to get some in before you go, right?
Or talk to somebody
or phone a friend who can place it for you. I would also say, even though you said 6 to 7 days a week you're betting on games, that doesn't mean you're like, I can't leave my office this whole day. That's fair. We of course have family commitments, kids, games, practices, or just plans that it's not like every game.
No, yeah.
You will miss games for things that we have to, that we have going on that are important. I think it's more the weeknights or weekends that there isn't something like really important that you're a bit holed up in your office.
Agreed.
With the games.
Would it be fair to say that Brian works restaurant hours but just with more flexibility?
It's a good analogy.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Except I enjoy this, where the restaurant can be, a grind,
Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. It's the same hours, right? Like similar.
Fairly, yeah, for sure.
Okay. So, and I'm sharing all these things because I'm trying to figure out, how it is that time can be carved out while still protecting your income stream in, the evening hours when, there's friends and their family and other kinds of commitments. So one of the things that stuck with me, one of the pieces of advice from a past podcast with Dr. Ashley Williams from Harvard, was that leisure time is most enjoyed when people are actively engaged and immersed in the experience. So I'll use pickleball as an example. If I'm playing pickleball, nobody can text me. I'm living in the moment because, I like to compete. I'm getting exercise. I don't have other responsibilities that are surrounding me at that moment where I have to tend to those from time to time. So the goal would be, when we establish equal leisure time, is to ensure that you both have those moments to be able to do that. And so like Brian, I don't know if I'm just using pickleball as an example, maybe it's basketball, but it could be something like that for you. And I don't know, Lucy, what you do with when you leave the house and do things, but it would need to be something that fits that description. Is that fair do you all agree with that, that definition of leisure time?
Yeah, I think I could get on board with that. I mean, I probably, as Brian was saying, for him, he defines it a little bit differently, but not to say there aren't things like going for a run or playing basketball or doing some of golf. He golfs when the weather's nicer here. So golf is something you would go out and do on your own or with a friend. So yeah, I think I could get on board with that definition.
What do you like to do, Lucy?
Usually when I'm having leisure time, I'm doing either a Pilates class or I'm going on a hike with a friend.
Okay.
Or grabbing lunch or brunch or, usually connecting with another friend in town. I have tried pickleball with the school ladies, but I've only made it to one session so far. So
that's all right.
I'm not in the pickleball quite yet, but yeah, or just, we're by the beach here. So sometimes it's just going down there and reading a book. Yeah.
Another reason I share that it's best to find for most people, leaving the home for children like yours, or at least the ages of your children and younger, because it's kind of like a running joke. Like, how many times does a child say mommy in a day? Mommy, right? And so when you're home, even though you might be kind of reading a book or doing something, you're going to hear mommy 1,000 times. So it's not true leisure time. Getting away from those responsibilities is how I would define it. So with all of that said, we're going to get into creating these systems where the goal would be some equal leisure time. And I want to share with the audience that before the episode, that Brian and Lucy already started working toward equal leisure time by completing the Persist Care Load Assessment and then sharing the results with me. And I'm a big fan of the Persist Care Load Assessment. It's free. It is a 5-minute online tool designed to help individuals visualize and measure the invisible mental, emotional, and logistical labor involved in household management. I like to see data quantified. I think it's a lot easier to have conversations about household labor when you do that. So you two have already done that. And for listeners, the way that I'm defining the mental load is the planning, tracking, researching, and remembering, where emotional labor involves worrying, caring, supporting, and mediating. And just a little side note, that emotional labor, research has found, is more difficult for people to manage than the mental labor. And there's a mental load and an emotional load to everything we do, right? This isn't just something that is done in the home. It's also done at work. So we're not going to discuss the details of the results, but we can share that Lucy does carry most of the household responsibilities, particularly the mental and emotional labor. And so we're going to work through the Fair Play system to try to create a way for tasks to be distributed and owned from start to finish, to make it more efficient, to prevent kind of what's called the nagging loop, to make sure that Brian doesn't feel like that he's being nagged, or that Lucy doesn't feel like that she has to delegate, particularly when times are, emotional. So in Fair Play, we're going to use the Fair Play system. Owning a task means owning the conception, the plan, and the execution of it. So CPE is the acronym. The key elements are that no one helps. So when we go through this, you own it from start to finish. And that includes, again, the CPE, the anticipatory labor, planning, and execution. So just using a basic, an example would be toothpaste. So let's say that, Brian, you're responsible for the toothpaste. That means you need to recognize when the toothpaste is low, plan when and where to purchase it, and then make the purchase. It's a little example, but these things add up. There's toothpaste, all examples everywhere.
Right.
There needs to be an agreement on a minimum standard of care, and that in using the toothpaste, if let's say Brian's buying the cheapest possible toothpaste and Lucy's like, no, we don't want our teeth rotted, then there's a disagreement. So you have to agree on what toothpaste is good enough to use in your house. Again, I mean, these are little things that cause friction. Like when I first got married, I would just buy the cheapest of everything because I'm frugal. My wife was the one like, no, we don't want cavities. And then we have to have mutual respect for approaches. And that means that Brian might have a different way to tackle a task than Lucy, or vice versa. So we have to give each other the opportunity to fail and go through the process on their own, because you might have a process that works for you, but it wouldn't work for him, and vice versa. And again, we're looking more for equal leisure time. We're not trying to task count, right? So if you start scorekeeping, then resentment builds, and then you spiral. So we are going to use the fair play cards in this activity today. Lucy, can you come up with, let's say, 5 tasks? You can either pull the cards out of the deck or write them down. The deck cards would probably be easier to use, and we can edit out any silence as you go through this. So don't feel like that you need to do this quickly. So 5 tasks that would accomplish 2 things. 1, give you the most relief, but 2, they're low stakes. That's important. So low stakes meaning, like, if one of your kids has to have a physical completed to play on his basketball team and it's not completed, he doesn't get to play basketball. That's high stakes. So I have no idea who handles physicals in your household, but if that's a high stakes task that you own, probably not the best one to give up. Low stakes would be the toothpaste, right? Just as an example. I don't think toothpaste is 1 card, but does that all make sense to you?
Yes.
You take your time, and I'm going to, obviously, I'll edit it out from here. Choose 5. And then after that, Brian will look at the 5 and he's going to find 3 that he would feel comfortable owning. So these are 5, Lucy, that you currently own, that you feel comfortable handing off. And then 3, Brian's going to choose 3.
Brian and I have a lot of things where we seem to split it. So, like dishes, as an example, he empties the dishwasher. I load it all up.
Does that work for you?
I mean, it works pretty well, except when I have to remind him a few times to empty it because my sink's getting full. So sometimes we get a little, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. We get a little cog in the line there, but
that sounds like an inefficiency. So I'm responsible for the dishes in my house, and every once in a while I'll be like, I'm too overwhelmed. I'll send it just a message in the group I have children to the family. I need someone to do the dishes, right? But other than that, it's like I own it because you have a routine,
because
right?
of the process.
Yeah. Because if they build up in the sink, and then you got to cook a meal, and you don't have the dishes that you need to cook the meal. So I would say for something like dishes that somebody should own it from start to finish. And then if you're jammed up,
then you ask for help.
Text each other and be like, I can't get to it. Can you do it?
Okay. Yeah, I feel like, and I feel like we're like that with like laundry too. So he does all his own laundry, which he has since we've been together. I offered to do it years ago, pre-children, because it would get a little stacked up before it got cleared, but he didn't. He wanted to do his own laundry, so he does his own laundry.
Yep.
Can you do everything else?
I do. Well,
as far as the laundry goes,
you'll do towels. He'll do like towels and sheets, but then the kids stuff I'm doing. And we do have some childcare support I told you about, so she'll help me with the folding. But so like, again, I feel like that's one of our things, because and I do like in the Persist that they let you kind of do the dial from like 50%, 75%, 100% when you said something was shared. I did think that was helpful because like auto, when I went through the auto description, he pretty much does all of the auto, except they had car seats in there. And I definitely do all like the car seat stuff. And then we'll both fill up gas or get a car wash if we're by that area running an errand. So I think that's where that's why I've had these cards for 3 years, and I've threatened him and turned it into a verb and told him he's going to get fair played. He better like watch out. But I just haven't executed it because I feel like it does feel like a lift. So
that we're not going to tackle anything that you're that's a sensible thing that you're already splitting. So like laundry makes sense. Like let me explain the difference between dishes and laundry. If the dishes are not getting done, it's like a clog in the system. It affects other things in your household. Where if it's very clear that Brian has his own laundry and you have your own with the kids, we don't have to worry about that clog. And the reason why that works in addition to that is that I would argue there's a heavy mental load with laundry, because you have to think about, at least this was the case with my kids. They played sports, but they had practice gear. So I had to make sure they always had the practice gear washed, their uniforms washed, the things that they needed, like when there were school pictures. And you probably have that for your job. And I'm sure Brian has that, like, particularly when he was working outside the home. Are there days where you need to make sure your suit has been dry cleaned? Like things that you would normally have to communicate with as only one person is doing it. I can see why it's easier to do it the way you're doing it, but there's still a mental load that accompanies that. So when you're going through and you're choosing 5, why don't you choose 5 where you think it makes sense to shift the ownership?
Okay.
And dishes could be one of them. Okay. I would argue that the way you're doing it can create more friction than create solutions.
Yeah.
Listeners have told us that they love the ideas we share on our podcast to manage money in the home as a team, but want more help than one episode can provide. That's why I'm excited to announce On the Same Page Consulting for corporations, couples, and individuals. Visit modernhusbands.com and click Our Services at the top of the page to learn more about how I can help you or your employees manage money in the home as a team. Again, that's modernhusbands.com. Now back to the show. Brian, what are the 5 that she selected?
All right. The first one is bedtime routine, and then in parentheses, kids.
I hate bedtime.
Yeah. Okay.
Am I reading the other 4 or just starting one with?
Let's go through all 5 first, and then you narrow it down.
Okay. The next one is lawn and plants. That's a curious pick, since neither of us really.
Okay.
Well, do you want to explain our house right now?
Yeah. I mean, I think lawn and plants, he said, is an interesting one because neither of us are really into that. We went through a whole remodel a couple years ago, and we're doing a separate addition piece now, and so we have not redone our yard.
We have no grass right now.
Okay.
However, when we do have grass,
I used to
mow it, and we do plan to have grass again after this spring, summer. Plus, we have landscaping, and like this is another example of something we outsource, but still has to be managed. So we both have, this is another area where we both jump in at different points. And so yesterday I ended up texting our landscaper and said, hey, spring's here early. We need to get the sprinklers on. We need to like start looking at these plants. They're looking rough after the snow. So like
we didn't have much snow this winter. That's why.
Well, we still had.
I don't know if you've been following. The West had like hardly any snow.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
We're in massive drought. Right
yeah, I mean, it was still all covered in feet at one point. Right. Either way, my point of that would be to manage. Yeah, like that's where you could manage outsource. Yeah, that you own it. That I wouldn't have had to think and have a discussion about it.
May I?
Yeah.
Combat your statement.
Sure.
We had to figure out what kind of plans we wanted and how we wanted it laid out, and I figured like I felt like it was a good back and forth, and we got what we wanted.
I think, and so Brian, you can weigh in on this.
This is a good example. This is really good. Okay, so let's say
juicy
that if Brian held the card, right, it's his responsibility, meaning that the anticipatory labor is essentially like reaching out to the landscaper. That's a perfect example, right? Doing all the communications, the payments, like knowing when those things are due. Like that's the anticipatory labor. However, there's a mental load to that, which is partially, it comes down to preferences, like which flowers are better. So a good example of what, Brian did was that he wanted to be considerate of the type of flowers that you wanted outside. So what, Brian could do is he owns the card and then he comes to you with options of like, hey, here are like 3 different flowers types that we could choose. What's your favorite? If you don't like them, then we can open it up. But by giving you more of a multiple choice of 3 or 4 flowers that make sense, and him digging and figuring out, either by just asking the landscaper, hey, what are the easiest ones to maintain that also look good? You create the list and then she chooses it. He is still shouldering the card. He is shouldering most of the mental load, but he's still also giving you the opportunity to give you the yard that you want. Does that make sense?
It does. And with this specific example, we actually went to the landscaper 20 minutes across
his
town,
greenhouse,
and we walked with him, and we ultimately came to an agreement. We're not doing any of the actual physical work. Once we picked out the trees and plants, it was just, ball was on the tee. Just had to let the landscaper do what he needed to do.
But you still had to find time in your calendar to go do that, to have a conversation. You had to make sure you had a budget for it. Those are still things that need to be done.
100%. But that's what I'm saying. That this example, I don't think is an example of us being combative, or we both did it.
I don't think it's being combative, but I do think, like last week, I was like, are you going to call Tyler? Like, well, can you just call him? Like, it's that we are still having a back and forth of who's going to keep on top of this, or who. And I think you did do a lot of the lift of finding him, getting the initial quote, setting up that appointment at the nursery. But then I was still involved in, like, I think paying the bill and a lot of the follow-up.
Maybe.
Brian, it sounds to me like that's handling this type of thing where there's something being outsourced would be similar to managing a restaurant and dealing with vendors.
Yeah, right? Vendors is can be challenging, but I think the larger issue is staffing.
Yeah, right.
Vendors, if they don't get the delivery to me on time, I can fire them. I can also fire staff, but it's a lot harder of a market to get quality employees in a restaurant world.
Where I'm going with this is that you have worked in an environment where you have to kind of look at something and decide what needs to happen, and then do some organizational work behind the scenes. It's something that you've done. So this might be a really good card for you to own completely, with I don't want to say the exception, but knowing that when you go to choose flowers, you do what you did. But other than that, you own all of it. And I'm just sharing that because it seems like a really natural thing for you to do.
Yeah, my only concern is just, if I don't run things by her, and then the plants get inserted into their spot, and then I get blamed for I don't really like this one. Well, you would have had your chance.
But we're not saying I wouldn't go to that appointment. We're not saying that I wouldn't engage in that piece of it, but that's the only piece I would have to engage.
Yes.
And you would have made sure the rest, from finding the landscaper through it being put in the ground, and then a maintenance schedule established and bills paid and all of that, that would be you.
Okay.
Right, Brian? That still fits within CPE?
That is correct. So he owns it from start to finish, all of those things. And then I think Brian's concern is a concern that I often have when I do things. Like, as just an example, it's top of my mind. We're moving right now. My wife is out of town on work, and I'm doing tons of the packing, like boxing things up and stuff. And what I'm dreading is when she gets home, is she going to start just instantly saying, well, I wouldn't have put these in these boxes, I would have labeled it differently. And what I'm going to do is just like walk away, because I'm going to be like, well, you should have just spent 30 hours doing it yourself. And it leads to a big fight. So you have to give each other just some like grace and empathy to know
Yeah.
it might not be perfect, and just to show each other gratitude, even if it's not perfect, that it's being done. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
What do
All
they
right.
call that? Also that we do the gatekeeping.
It's called gatekeeping.
Yeah.
Yeah. And gatekeeping is a normal human response to owning the responsibilities of something and then handing it off. And you've owned the responsibility for a long time. You know the way that you like it done, that worked for you, and you're nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So we have.
Oh wait, did we say dishes? I don't know if you agreed to dishes.
Well, yeah, I mean, you load, I unload, but what Brian's advocating for, if I understand correctly, is to take it from the 1 yard line to the opposite end zone in Columbus. So, yeah, I mean, you would prefer to do it that way? Is that what you're saying?
That I own it, or that you own it?
Would you prefer that one of us take it all the way? I feel like you could take it all the way.
I could probably take it all the way, because another thing my dear husband does is he often takes the dishes out, and the ones that are like plastic where the stuff kind of gets stuck, he'll let them sit out in the drying rack for a while. And then I do feel like I end up putting them away half the time once they've dried.
And that grinds your gears.
Yes, because that's what I tell him. The worst part about emptying the dishwasher is that not everything dries, and you have to dry it while you put it away. So I guess I would be happy to take that one on fully and you stop emptying it. But then I feel like you have to take on like 4 of these 5 cards.
The dishes are nonstop.
I do something that I think most men may not do. But I don't know. I don't know this is a factual statement. I clean the toilets.
Good for you.
Without ever asking her to clean the toilets, because I feel like I do a better job on that. Now, we do have a cleaning crew that comes, once a month?
Right now they're once a month.
Once a month. But, we got 2 young boys, 9 and 4, as we discussed. So it's like, they're peeing everywhere in and around the toilet,
Yeah.
So it's just a hot mess. But so I take that one on. Do I get a win there?
That's good.
Okay. What do you like?
Do I get a sticker?
Like to say to me when I'm bitching, proud of you we are.
Yes, proud of you we are.
Yes.
All right, what is the next card?
Mail.
I don't really see what's the issue there.
Well, yeah. I'm not saying it's an issue. I'm just looking through things that you and I both
that we have a P.O. box. We don't actually physically get mail here because of where we live on the side of a mountain, 65 feet up. So we actually do not even have the ability to have mail delivered to us. We do get FedEx and UPS delivered, but for snail mail, we have to go down to our local town center, and they've got a post office there, and everyone knows everybody. It's like cheers, you go in and you say hi to them, and they're all great. I'm not being weird about it, but it's a very interesting, unique place that we live.
But I do think that makes it like more of a chore. I don't feel like we have a ton of outgoing mail that has to be managed, maybe some returns here and there, which could go into this. But you do, like right now, we have 2 cards, like they put little yellow slips in our box when we have a package. Well, he often gets the mail after dropping our son at school. It's on the way home, and they're not open yet for packages. So then we've got the 2, like right now, we've got 2 yellow slips that are in the cabinet that somebody has to grab the mail keys and the slips and remember to stop in on one of the trips over that way. So I do think it could just be not that it's that much of a heavy lift, but it could just be like, I never think about mail. You're just going to take care of it. Or you could run packages when they need to be returned too.
Let's get back to that in a second. The way I have a feeling that I know the outcome. What is the next card?
That's not low enough hanging fruit.
Is that 5 cards?
Oh no, home maintenance was the 5th.
Okay, who owns that right now?
I mean, it's like another split.
It's
another like.
I am not handy at all.
Neither am I, Brian.
and I own that to the fullest extent. I don't, her dad is super handy, and I am the exact opposite of that. But I don't know. I feel like you're more handy than me. I think sure.
I think I do a lot of just like YouTubing, and then I'll figure out like what it is. If like our son clogged the toilet a couple weeks ago, and I just, Googled several things and then finally let it sit with soap overnight and it unclogged the next morning. But so I think I'll kind of take that extra step to be like, all right, let's at least try to save a couple $100 on a plumber and try a couple tricks here. But I guess I think of home maintenance a little differently when I read this, more about, because we are generally not going to fix things on our own. Like, I'm happy to spend 5 minutes doing a YouTube and seeing if I can get something to work, but then we're going to be calling someone. So I feel like that would be more like, this needs attention.
Yeah, right.
Get a hold of the plumber.
The air conditioner's out.
Call the handyman. Yeah, call the HVAC.
That's another thing we don't really have out here. We have an air conditioner, but we use it about 6 days a year.
Oh, that's nice.
I think we did more last summer than 6.
Yeah. So cool.
Do either of you have trouble spending money? Like, is it a real stress point?
I think Brian's a bit more like frugal than me with certain things. It just kind of depends on the item, but he's not gonna like that clogged toilet example. He was ready to, he was like, well, we'll probably just have to call the plumber in the morning. And I was more like, no, we can figure this out without spending $250. Like, let me try to tackle this. So he's not ever like, let's not do that because I don't want to spend the money. It's more like getting through the steps of researching who we need to get in contact to help us, and then getting the appointment and doing all those pieces that I don't feel like we have a solid ownership around it. It's just like one of us.
It's a big hassle, right? You got to research it. You got to call them, leave a voicemail. They're calling you back, text messages. A lot of these people are just not good at communication.
Yes, they don't come when they say.
Right. Yeah.
That's pretty good at solving the stuff on YouTube.
The YouTube stuff.
YouTube.
I get pretty like determined that we should be able
Respect.
to. We're adults. We can do some of this on our own. So I do get like that.
Is that the 5th card?
Yes. So we had bedtime, lawn and plants, mail, dishes, and home maintenance were the 5.
Okay. And you said, Brian, you said no to bedtime. And it sounds to me like you don't want to do the home maintenance.
What did I say no to bedtime officially? Or what did I say?
You did. You didn't. You just were like, I don't know.
I don't know.
But here's where I'm pushing back on bedtime. Okay. I know how this is going to go. We might have to choose a 6th card. Bedtime is when the games are on. And bedtime.
Here they're a little earlier.
Yeah, because it's earlier because they're not here. So most of the games end earlier for us. But the kids go to bed at
usually 8:30. 8:30.
They try to push it to 9 sometimes. But
yeah.
So the younger one who just turned 5 a little bit ago, last week, whatever. I guess it was a week ago.
Yeah.
He is in love with mommy. I can't even, if I try to put him to bed, he says, "Where's mommy?" I get that every time. So I still put him to bed, but it's not, he does a lot more with her at bedtime with the 5-year-old.
So I actually thought about this, Brian, if you've had experience with couples and when they get these cards out and start to actually shift this ownership and they have younger children, how they kind of work through, because my kids, so as he said, bedtime's a bit of a struggle where it probably isn't a fair card to 100% put to one of us, because I hate it. And Brian doesn't seem as bothered by it, but the kids usually want me. And then it's like, I get mommy tonight. I get mommy tonight. So they'll get like that. And then there's also things that they'll be like, well, daddy doesn't know how to make that. or I need you to take me because daddy doesn't know how to do this or that. So I would be interested in, I guess it's maybe all just kind of working through that shift that we sort of have a family meeting and say, like, we're doing some things differently and mommy and daddy are going to switch some stuff up and we need to all work together on it. But that's definitely something that I like have thought about as I've thought about doing the cards, is like getting the kids also used to, it's not mommy, like daddy can do all these things and he can jump into.
Yeah, I would recommend a family meeting, and this one's something that I would recommend splitting. So whatever that split looks like to you guys, let's just say that one of you takes it for 4 nights, the other for 3 nights, and that the kids know that that's the routine. That Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays it's dad. The other nights it's mom. Whatever that may be, and just to stick with it. My only concern with, I think when you structure that, I just want to make sure it's done in a way where you're not interfering with Brian's work, because if he's trying to, if he's in game betting while, he should be getting the kids to bed and something's in overtime, there's just going to be friction.
Yeah.
There's going to be frustration. Like, why aren't you doing this? So I just want to make sure that we are positioning Brian to have success. Because if he doesn't, it's just going to create more problems.
Yeah.
So just think that through when you're dividing the evenings. And I'm with you. I think that the outdoor, like the landscaping, that's an easy one for Brian to own. She took dishes, which is that's a massive one. I think we need to choose a 6 card. That's huge. What was it? What was another one that you took, Brian?
What's another one you took? Mail. Did we land on mail?
No, we didn't. But
just real quick on that, I feel like you left a few things out on that. What? It's the post office is located it's next to the grocery store that we shop at. So like, it's not just like we're going out of our way to go to the PO. I feel like you kind of left that out, because the post office to get groceries is just 2 minutes down there. So you kind of like tend to do 2 things at once,
Who does the grocery shopping?
Both.
See, we are like, we don't have a one person. So
do you have a list? A shared list?
No, we don't do it. So like, if Brian is going, I feel like we're like so rural. If we're going down the hill to Carson City, the big city, then I'll give him I will send him a Costco list that is sort of just a list on my phone, the notes, and I adjust it slightly depending on the week. So we'll have a list like that, or sometimes we'll do a Walmart pickup down there, where then again, in my phone, in the app is like my previous purchases and I just click through. But we don't have one of those like everybody write in or type in what you want for the week. We don't have a list like that. It's just between us going back and forth.
Okay. And Brian, is where you're going with this was like, I'm assuming if she's running to the grocery store, it's easier because it's right there for her to pick it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we both do that. That's what I'm saying. I think it's kind of an even split on this one.
Yeah. I just think like, if we're looking for a few things, like mail is a pretty, to me, because we're not dealing with much outgoing mail, and I wouldn't expect that he needs to if I have a card I want to write someone, he can drop it off for me. But like, I just more mean like that could be an item that you can easily do, that you can you remember that you need to grab those 2 yellow cards when you go get Kieran from school today, because they're open for pickup on your way home. And then that's just one thing, even though it's a small thing. It's not like I'm sitting here going like, where's the mail? But there are times where you're looking for a package and I'm like, can you go get the mail today?
Yeah.
I'm looking for this package. So if you just know, and you set a little reminder for yourself to grab the mail twice a week on the way home from grabbing Kieran, then it's just something I never have to think about, and it just shows up on the counter. Like, that's
why I'm thinking a good plan for you, Brian.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So you own the mail, and I think that now that let's use mail as an example as we go through this. So we're talking about anticipating needs, planning logistics, executing without reminders, like she's not going to remind you anymore. Minimum standard of care is when do you have to get mail same day? Would that make you both happy, or the next day? What does that look like?
I think getting there a couple times a week is fine. I don't feel like we have enough, and I guess, it would just be a couple times a week to make sure, maybe like set like a Wednesday, Friday or something. Or maybe like a Tuesday, Friday, just to like get it cleared out a couple times. Just set days would be fine.
Well, now the way I operate it depends on what works for Brian. Is that for something like that, I just block out in my calendar when I'm going to do it. So if like I'm picking up my son on those days and I know I'm going to try to stack the responsibilities, the errands, I would add that to the calendar. Mm-hmm. If I don't, I just lose track of time. If I don't add it to the calendar, then I double book myself. So, however Brian decides to kind of anticipate the needs, sounds like you're going to have set days. The logistics of it's up to him. And then he just has to own it. That would be, the fair play system for the male. The next thing we talked about was bedtime. You're going to split that up. As far as the outdoor responsibilities, that I think you're going to have like a 15-minute meeting between you where you just hand off to Brian any kind of contacts that you have for all of those responsibilities. And that includes like payment information, right? Like billing information. Just think through like auto pay, for example. So a little thing that could happen is you, Lucy, if are you auto paying any of these landscapers?
No, we're not on like a maintenance schedule with him. Okay. So it's just when they come out, then we'll get a bill.
Okay. So Brian's got to put this is a great example of just like a little thing that just creates friction where Brian wants to own it. He knows he needs to contact the landscaper. He doesn't have the contact information in his phone. He contacts you. You're doing something. He needs it right then. So to get through that, meet for 15 minutes, share all the information that's necessary, and then you just got to communicate with them that he's handling it, and not to communicate with you anymore, Lucy. And then Lucy, when they reach out to you, just say, hey, just so you know, I don't know what's going on. My husband handles this.
Okay.
So you have to hold your ground with the landscapers too, so they know to never contact you again.
Okay. I like it.
Well, what's the next thing?
I think morning routine kids, I just found this one in here. I think this is one that we could put with bedtime where we're not fully dividing it, but where we could do days. Because like the same bedtime, what we do right now typically is each person takes a kid, which feels a little bit better to like not have to manage both of them, but then you're not getting really nights off of it. Right. So I think it is an example, and I think morning routine could be an example where it may be a little bit more work for the person that day because you do like 2 drop-offs and getting lunches ready, but then the other person could essentially get their whole morning back, where right now we have this kind of divide where I usually get the kids breakfast and get their lunches, and then he takes the older to school and I take the younger. Well, neither of us really got a full block to get anything done for ourselves or our work because we're kind of jumping in and out. They're only 5 minutes from each other.
The larger issue with our 5-year-old is he has to be brought into this. It's a the local recreation center.
Okay.
Inside, so one of us has to walk him in. He's a little needy. So
they have their steps like wash your hands, go to the bathroom, sign in. It's like a few minute process. But when either of us is traveling, the other one has to do both. So it's not like we can't do it and figure it out.
I have done it probably, if I had to guess, maybe 5 times a year versus what?
4 days a week.
200 days a year. But I take the older one to school, which is a little bit further.
But he pulls up and the kid jumps out of the car. So
what do you want him to do? Drop and roll?
Well, no, I'm just saying that's a very different. That's where I like to use the analogy that he's more like the FedEx or UPS driver. Like I have the package fully put together.
Right.
And then he goes out and starts the car. The kid comes out with his backpack, anything else he needed for the day. And then he goes and drops him off. The kid jumps out of the car.
Yeah.
And then he's on his way home, where I did all those other things and did them for our other son and did the whole routine of drop off that.
This one is a perfect one to work through. I love this one. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. First, let's start big picture. I love your idea of looking at evening routines and morning routines and figuring out a system that is equitable and gives you both time back. So as an example, it's up to you two. Maybe whoever had the evening shift doesn't have the morning shift the next day.
Okay.
Right? Okay. So you two in your own time can figure out what days make the most sense for you. The morning shift is a big one when it comes to emotional and mental labor, because there are so many things, assuming that your 5-year-old is like, do you pack his lunch?
Yeah, like snacks.
Snacks. Okay. All right. So this is the morning routine needs to be done in a way where, I think, since Lucy's owned it, it's going to again require 10 or 15 minutes where you two sit down together. What I would recommend is to create a checklist that Brian can own, that you two do together. So then you're not having to constantly remind him. So, because he's never done this. I did this when I took over the laundry in our home, where I'm like, look, I've not done the laundry. I'm happy to do all the laundry. Just tell me what goes with what. How do you want it done? I made an Excel spreadsheet based on exactly what she said. We spent 10 minutes doing it. And I have a checklist that is above the washer and dryer. I own it, but we just created the list together. My recommendation is to create this list together of what needs to be done to get him out the door and to get him into school, to reduce the mental load and to eliminate the need for like communication in the morning. It's just one more thing that you'd have to talk about that takes time that you don't have. So when you do this, you have to think through, what is it that he needs in the morning for snacks, for food? Does he have to take extra shoes? Those types of things. Where this can get a little bit more complex is who owns school communication. So without muddying the waters a little bit, if let's say Lucy owns all the school communication, then now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I need a permission slip, or, we don't have school starting at the same time today, those types of things. So let's start simple. For right now, I'm assuming Lucy owns school communication. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So if you own school communication, then for the time being, anything outside of that generic list, that is that punch list you go through every day that Brian can execute. If you're getting communication from the school that requires something different, like it's a field trip or whatever it is, you have to set time to talk to him the night before.
Okay. I think that's doable.
Okay. And there's a million ways to divide this up, right? We're trying one approach. Another approach is, he owns all things school related with one child, and then you own the other. Another approach is that he owns all the things school related, including drop-offs, or vice versa. But we're trying to divide this up in a way right now to go to total equal leisure time. All right.
Yep.
Now, as you go through this process, one of the things that Brian has to do, even though there is a checklist, he still has to anticipate problems. Like if it's going to rain or if it's going to be cold or things like that, then Brian has to be the one to remember to grab the winter jacket, to grab the umbrella, to do all these things that maybe, like, at least I'm guilty of this, where if I'm only thinking about myself, I don't worry about grabbing an umbrella. I don't worry about, grabbing a coat for my 5-year-old because my 5-year-old will forget it. So he's got to be the one to, do all of these little things in advance of getting the kid out the door. And is he tough to get up in the morning?
No, the little one usually gets up before the older one. So he's more of our early riser. So it's really just, sometimes he's a little tough to get out the door, but I feel like when you've had to get both kids out the door, everybody was on time and you were fine. Like, I think you forgot a lunch once and you had to go back and bring it or something. But like when I was out of town.
Yeah, that's been pretty.
It's been rare right now that we've had that. But I do feel like there's an element of when you have to do both and you have that in your mindset, you prep a little better. I don't know. I feel like you guys, when I talked to you and I was traveling, like everybody was on time. Where like me and the younger one end up like late most of the time because I'm like getting everybody's stuff together. And then I'm like, oh shoot, I'm not ready myself. I need to go get changed. And okay, let's get out the door. And it's 9:00 and he's supposed to be there at 9. So like, I do think there's something to knowing you have to do it all. And the one person kind of directing the ship versus we're kind of like jumping in and out all the time.
Yeah, those were our experiences when one person just owns it that morning for everybody, making the breakfast, creating the lunch, the snacks, etc. All right, Brian, are you comfortable with that approach?
Sure. Yes.
Trying the divide up days. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We need to reconvene in a few weeks.
All right.
Brian, what's one thing that you understand better about your partner after this conversation?
I mean, I don't know if there's any one thing that hit me today, but I mean, she's pretty organized. Way more organized than I am, which I'll give her credit for. I do think that a lot of things that we do, we've figured out how to do it, but I understand your point about maximizing your time, right? And that's why they should take it from start to finish. So that's something that, I never really thought about, mainly because we've split a lot of the stuff, and some of it's been effective, and I guess some hasn't been effective. So I think there's plenty of room for us to figure out how to maximize each other's time.
One thing I want to give you credit for, Brian. I don't know who's more organized than another one, but you ran a restaurant.
Yeah.
So you can be crazy organized. I don't think I'm organized enough to run a restaurant. So what gives me hope is that as we divide these tasks up, that you're going to be able to apply your natural organizational skills to just what those tasks are now. And you find different ways to do things. But I think that you have a really good skill set.
Well, thank you. I didn't always feel that way when I was running a restaurant for 10 years. It was just, we were right next to the convention center. So it was just, it wasn't like a normal restaurant where you have ebbs and flows. It's like you get crushed when there was a convention in town, and we were right near the hotels. And so it was a lot of wild stock market, zigzags of what tourism was in town and stuff. So it was an interesting 10 years of my life. Let's put it that way.
I bet. So, Lucy, what gives you hope moving forward?
Well, I think just the fact that we're finally sitting down and having a conversation, and as Brian said, to look at it a little differently in terms of how we may be moving along with both of us jumping in on things, but how we can really be more efficient and get some of that time back. I'm just really happy to be having the conversation and making a plan to at least move the needle a bit to start.
Good. Well, we will reconvene in a few weeks and maybe come up with a few more cards. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
That sounds great.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you both for doing this.
Thank you, Brian. That was fun.
Don't leave just yet. Be sure to like and subscribe before you do. And a reminder to visit modernhusbands.com if you're looking for money and home management support in your life. Just click the Our Services button at the top of the page. Again, that's at modernhusbands.com. And many thanks to our co-hosts, our guests, and of course, all of you for joining today.